All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to an exciting stream here. I have two of the developers of the game Teacup, which just came out this week. It's a short and wholesome narrative adventure game where you help a small and shy frog on her journey to find the ingredients she needs for her tea party. If you know me, excuse me, if you know me, you know I love tea, and I love games that include it. The game is currently available since September 23rd, since Thursday of this week, on PC, Xbox, and PS4 in North America, and is coming to Switch and PS4 in other regions next week. And the links to purchase are in the description below on YouTube and Facebook, or you can type !Teacup in the chat for all the links. So, I have Alonso and Frances from Chile. Thank you guys so much for being here. Why don't you tell us a bit more about yourselves and your role with Smarto Club?
Hey everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. I am Alonso, and I am the programmer and producer of the team. Besides making all the magic code stuff and make the game work together, I am also in charge of the fun business stuff like legal and accounting and planning to make sure that the game comes out in time where it should be.
Everyone, I'm Frances. I am the environmental artist of Smarto Club, and I do the backgrounds. Since we're a small team, we all.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for being here. We are missing one member from your team. Can you tell us a bit about them and how they helped bring Teacup to life?
Okay, so we are missing Dani. She's the illustrator, and she works as a character designer on our team. One like Teacup and all the other amazing villages of Teacup. So yeah, she's like the creative part of the creative team of Smart.
Yeah, and there's another member that wasn't part of the original team but joined us during development, which was Matthias, who was an additional programmer. When I realized, whoa, all this business stuff takes a lot of time, I need somebody to help me with programming. He came in and helped us finish programming the game.
Very cool. Well, I will switch to a screen here. We're going to show 15 minutes of gameplay on a loop if we have more time than that. But just the first 15 minutes of Teacup. It's a beautiful game. I want you guys to get a good look at it and see what it's all about. And then at the end of our interview, we will have time set aside for questions from you guys in the chat. So I see we have Simon here, Flower, Smokeback, and Awkward Silence. Thanks guys for being here, and I see there's a couple others lurking as well. So there will be time at the end if you have any questions. So Alonso and Frances, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better personally before we talk about Teacup. This is something that I ask all of our guests. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
That's an interesting question. Why do you ask that question?
Well, that's my favorite food. I just want to know if we share favorite foods.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, the thing is that I tried it as a kid, and I was so indifferent to it that I never tried it again. And now I kind of look at it, and I bet I could try it again and see if I like it or not. But I just look at it, and there's so many other more interesting options that I never have the chance to try it.
My heart.
I think I tried it once too. Like in a game jam, everyone like they ordered pizza. It was like pineapple pizza or normal pizza, and it was like most huge fight. Like no pizza, pineapple pizza. And I was like, no, it's delicious, and I was like, what is this? I tasted it. It was really great. I kind of.
Okay, good. So 1 for 2. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's a divisive topic.
Yeah, totally.
Alonso, what is it? If you like pizza, what's your favorite topping then?
Oh, that's a good question. I am a fan of chicken barbecue pizza. As much as I love tomato sauce, when you put barbecue sauce on pizza, it works magically too, and with chicken, it's the best combination.
Okay, I can get on board with that one, yeah.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, and obviously I have to ask this one. What is your favorite tea? You made a game called Teacup about a frog compiling her collection of tea. So, Alonso, I know you drink coffee. We've talked about this in the chat before. Okay, so what is your favorite type of coffee then?
I do like coffee, I just don't drink it as much because actually for the release we did have a tea party and we had tea with cookies, and of the ones we drank, because we drank a lot of tea, I really like a mango tea that we had. But most of the time I'm drinking coffee, and I really don't have any favorite. I'm always kind of going around tasting different stuff. Like this morning I had German coffee, which was really good.
Nice.
I would say that I like green teas a lot. I like matcha tea. My favorite, I would say, it's difficult, but I would say mint tea and rooibos. Rooibos is great, but mint tea is better.
Okay. I've had tea with mint in it. Well, no, I guess I've had a mint tea and a rooibos a couple times. My favorite is oolong. I love the flowery, the floral scents and stuff like that. I am drinking a Taiwanese black tea today, so cheers to all of you out there.
Nice.
Very delicious. So how did the three of you, or the four of you, I guess now, on your team, how did you guys meet, and how did you come up with the name Smarto Club for your team?
Yeah, so I can talk about how we met. Because we all met at our university. We studied at the same place, and there I was one of the organizers of the game development club at our university. I've always been there organizing activities and such. Francie can talk a bit later how she joined the club, but we all participated in a club and became friends. And when at one point we decided, yeah, we enjoy making games as at the club, but we're friends. Let's try making a game outside the club, just the three of us at that time. And that's how we became Smarto Club. Francesca, tell us about the name.
So Danny and I because we speak Spanish, and Danny and I sometimes add words in English to phrases and stuff, but we start to change them. So it started smart, but then we said smarto, and we tend to use it in when somebody is making a smart mark or a creative solution. We said, oh, smarto, but it started because we mostly do that. It would take 3 steps, and we were doing it in 12 steps, and we would say, when somebody pointed out, like Alonso mostly pointed out, could do this in 3 steps, we were, oh, smarto. So that's how we came up with the name. We were doing it a lot. We said a lot. We ended up being the Smarto Club.
Interesting. So a team effort even to come up with the name.
Yeah, totally.
How did you guys both get into designing and developing video games? I know you talked about meeting at the game club there, or the game development club, but what did you have any previous experience before that with animation, writing, anything of that sort?
So I'm a bit kind of the longer, been into this for a longer time, because yeah, I mentioned actually before we started this stream, I mentioned that I lived for a few years in the United States before coming down here to Latin America, Chile. And that was because my parents were working at a game company called Jumpstart. If you ever played a Jumpstart educational game, but my parents worked there for a time. And as a starry-eyed kid, I was kind of like, yeah, when I'm big, I want to be like my adults, and I was like my parents, and I also want to make video games. And since I've been a kid, I've been dabbling into game development, looking for tutorials online and stuff like that. And yeah, after experimenting a lot, I decided that programming and business were the stuff I was most interested in, and focus on that stuff.
For me, it was really, I was in my last year of university, and I said, like, I started thinking about my possible future jobs, and video games were an interesting topic, an interesting place to be working at. I didn't know a lot about video games, and then I found out about Game Debuse. That was the organization that Alonso mentioned before, and they were hosting a game jam, and I said, oh, I could volunteer at this, and find out what they do, but not join and don't know what to do. So I like in a field mission and help Alonso working at the game jam, and it was amazing. Later on, I joined my last game jam and went to games and stuff. So that's how I actually got into video games. Like when I got there, I was like, "What? This is beautiful!" But how did they do it? And I didn't know nothing. But they were really nice people and a lot. So, and parallel to that, at university I took a lot of writing courses and also animation courses, but mostly experimental, like stop motion or the history of animation, stuff like that.
Stop motion is something that I'm really interested in. Like as a kid, I dabbled in it with like my first digital camera, but I love watching stop motion movies like Isle of Dogs or The Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I love seeing the behind the scenes and thinking about just how much time that took to make like one 30-second scene. It could have taken like a month. It's It's insane. So let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, but I was gonna say, like, when in Laika, in the end of the movie, like Coraline or Box Trolls start showing a scene, and then a person that animated appears in pictures while moving. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool. So let's talk more specifically about Teacup now. And before we do, I just want to say how much I enjoyed playing it and how much I enjoyed the experience that you guys built. It's so beautiful. We were talking about this. The world is so beautiful. Every time you walk into a new area, I was just kind of blown away by how it looked. And as an avid tea drinker, obviously, the journal and tea collection aspects were especially enjoyable to me. Plus all the charming animals you get to meet along the way. So from me to you, thank you guys for making this game.
We're glad you enjoyed it.
Really glad you enjoyed it.
So where did you come up with the idea and the story for the game, and how long had it kind of been floating around in your head to make it?
So kind of started, because I mentioned, we should make a game together, but we didn't know when or what to make. And then the contest came up, a local contest here in Chile, where we live, a game development contest. And I was like, hey, this contest is a good excuse to make a game. Why don't we make something? And I knew that Franche and Danny really liked tea. So I was like, okay, to convince them to make a game with me about for the contest, let's make some game about tea. And the funny thing is that actually the first idea, the idea that I proposed to them at that time, was a bit more like, I'm not sure if you watched the Ghibli film Areti, the Secret World of Areti.
I haven't seen it.
It's basically about miniature people who live in a human house and kind of slowly steal stuff to have all the stuff they need for their house. Like they steal a cube of sugar, and they have enough sugar for a month. Stuff like that. And I wanted to make a game about a small miniature person in a miniature society that had to go collect tea leaves. And that was actually my first idea. But then interesting stuff happened, and Franche can tell you about that, how the idea changed.
So, when we came up with the idea, like at the end of 2019, but on October 2019, our country had really rough, hard to go outside of the house, and it was really hard to see the TV and the news. And so we kind of felt that we needed something that it was wholesome and soothing and like a hug, because everything was like, there was uncertain and really scary. So that's how it turned into something more wholesome, because we wanted something like positive in the end. And that's how we turn it out into Teacup we know now.
Yeah, it is a very wholesome game, and it's very relaxing to play, and I can see how that is a result of the situation that you were talking about. How long have you been working on development, and what do you think was the biggest difficulty in that process?
So we started development. So yeah, this October stuff came up, and we were really worried about other stuff. But sometime in January in 2020, things had calmed down, and we said, okay, let's start making a demo for this game. Let's see how it goes. And we kind of developed a prototype in a few months, sometime in March. And we can talk a bit later about the publisher process, but that's kind of when we sent the demo to the publisher. And the publisher accepted the demo sometime in July that year, when everybody was, the COVID had taken over the world and everybody had started to get used to remote work. That's when we started full development, and full development took about a year or so for us to finish the game. And about difficulties, I think since it was our first game as a team, first big game, and our first commercial project too as developers, at least for me, I think the difficult part was kind of learning how to work together, kind of how to coordinate ourselves to work on this bigger project where we need a lot of ideas and a lot of moving parts working together for the game to be the game it is. And kind of learning how to get that process working was the most interesting challenge for me. I don't know what was the hardest part for French.
Well, I think that kind of working or like from home via chat, because sometimes it's easier to figure out what the other person thinks about your ideas. Or talking about, we see each other's faces, like, oh yeah, it's easier to get the vibe from the other person. So for me, that was kind of hard. And then organizing everything so everyone be clear about things like, no, this is happening here, or the character said that, so maybe on the game you should see that he says that, and stuff like that. I think the most difficult part for me was to implement the art to Unity, because I've never used Unity, and it was like learning Photoshop again, and it was too much information. And I know I just saw a bit of Unity, like the part that Alonso let me see, but if I saw more, I got confused. Like he said, you have to put the animations on it. Okay, how do I do that? Where are the buttons? Like, it was really hard for me, but well, learning is hard, so yeah, hardest part.
I have heard that Unity, even though it's widely used, it is still very confusing and maybe not very well optimized for newbies or experienced developers, from what I've heard.
Yes, it has too much parts. So you basically have to get a process of like, of all these windows, I only really need this one and this one and this one. And when you kind of identify which are the important windows, then you can survive. But it's too much features.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned Photoshop, and I've worked in Photoshop for at least 10 years, and there's still things that I'm learning how to do in there. It's I guess that's what makes it a good software or a good development program, is that there's so much that you can do. It's just a matter of learning.
Yes.
Is there an overall message? I think we kind of already touched on this, but is there an overall message that you hope to communicate through Teacup?
Yeah, kind of. When we were making Teacup, we wanted to tell the story about a kind of shy character who was thrown into the world because she had to, not because she wanted to, because we kind of felt identified with that idea, because most of us are more on the introvert side and like staying at home. But a lot of good things have happened to us when we decide to get out of our comfort zone. And we wanted to make a story about that message. Francia is the main writer, so she can explain it with prettier words than me.
Well, yeah. Just like you said it well, like when you get out of your comfort zone, you get to meet amazing places, amazing people, and beautiful. The world is beautiful. Please, on your own time, try and enjoy it and try new things, because I think it kind of shows in how I met Alonso, because if I didn't volunteer, I'd never formed this Smarto team, because Danny would never known Alonso. So try little things and then you get new friends, and I don't know. It's beautiful outside. Try stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I agree. Even just recently, I guess a couple weekends ago, my wife and I went for a hike for like the first time in a year or so. Like we've been very busy working and staying in the house, and we went for a hike, and we actually met some really nice people, and we've become friends with them. And yeah, that's not my comfort zone though. Like my wife started talking to them about our dog and their dogs, and then I was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll talk to them. But yeah, it is. I'm a very introverted person too, so like these kind of games where your character has to step out and kind of discover themselves really appeal to me and really make me feel connected to the character. Within the world of Teacup, there are so many options as far as where to explore. I know that you guys had a focus on non-linear progression and letting players kind of decide where they want to go and who they want to talk to in what order. What difficulties did you face in designing and developing a game that allows a player to do that? One that gives the player options and allows them to progress at their own pace?
Yeah, well, this kind of came together because when we started development, like very much at the beginning, was at the same time I had gotten a Switch, and I was 100% addicted to Breath of the Wild. And I really love this, exploring this open world where you could complete the story whenever you wanted, or just run around and explore and talk to people and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of wanted to make a game that had this focus on non-linear progression. And a narrative game was more our interest, but I kind of wanted to let players go at their own rate. I think the important thing here was kind of to understand that since it's a narrative game, things have to happen in a certain order to make sense. But within that order, you can switch things around and the story still works. So it's a bit of a process of identifying, okay, which story threads have to happen in a certain order, and which kind of short stories can we tell about this character or this other character. That it doesn't really matter when the players go talk with them or in which order. And I think it's also a bit of testing, kind of like we had ideas and we had to put them into the game and kind of get a feeling of if this made any sense or actually it didn't make too much sense, and we had to rewrite it. Frances, the environment artist, had to design the map of the game too, which wasn't that easy at first. Tell us about that.
Okay, so we had a map, first one of the demo, and it was like, it works well. In my mind, it worked well. But then I had to figure the locations and how to move between places. And then it didn't work so well, and I had to do it again. And I sent it to Alonso, and I said, Alonso, this is better, right? And he was like, to do it again. And then I sat an entire evening. I'm not a professional designer, so I had to sat the entire evening with my team, like, okay, so if you go to this place from this place, and then you see this place, and I was like, this is the end of the place. You have to enter for there. And I was like, no, it was horrible, but that was the most challenging design thing I had to do. So I won't complain about that.
It sounds like it can become a very complicated web, like connecting this place to this place, this character to saying something about this other character over here, and that by the end of it you've just got this massive like tangle of conversations and places.
That meme from It's Always Sunny, I don't know if that's serious, but it's like this guy in front of a wall full of papers, like it was Sylvie Pepper.
Yes.
I felt like that guy.
When you're watching like a detective series or something, and they've got all their pins and suspects. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about the art, because to me this is one of the biggest selling points of the game. When I first played it during Ludo and Archon earlier this year with Leon from I Love Indies, actually, and we had you guys in the text chat, we talked about how the art style seemed plucked right out of a children's book. How did you settle on crafting Teacup in such an unusual way? I mean, at least to me, it's unusual to see this kind of art in video games.
When we started, because we said we wanted something wholesome and stuff, we said, and because it was a frog who likes tea and is dressed like in a little pink dress, we thought, well, one of our references must be Frog and Toad or Wind in the Willows and other like Velvet Forest. So we thought that's one huge reference from Teacup. But then with Danny, we did not want to say goodbye to color. We love color, and he added that to the mix. But I think the most important factor is that Dani, it's a pixel artist, and she's the kind of pixel artist that says pixel color, do it simpler. And I'm the contrary. I'm like, more pixels, more colors. What is missing? Like, put it more things. And so we had to meet at the end and like have to find like balance between both. And I think that's how Teacup came. Like, add a little bit of Frog and Toad, add a little bit of color, add a little bit of pixels and textures, and then you have Teacup.
That's awesome. Leon, actually, right before you had mentioned Wind in the Willows, he is in the chat right now, and he said, we're the devs inspired by Wind and the Willows. So
Yeah.
you answered it without even knowing.
Yeah, we had a copy of it. I have a copy of it, and we had it around when we were brainstorming the game at first.
So, Franche, what inspires you as an artist? This is more of a broad question, I guess, but I'm always curious. I'm not an artistic person, so what inspires you?
Well, I would say, first of all, other artists. It's always amazing to enter like platforms like Instagram or Twitter and find amazing artists that are posting there and they're doing great stuff. That always inspires me. But also my friends that are artists, because they're like doing their own things, and that's really inspiring. Like, they're doing comics or doing animations, working on video games too, and I think that's a really huge inspiring point. And nature is also a huge it's a really inspiring thing for me. Because I live in a place that has a lot of nature, and it's really wonderful just to sit there and admire things for a while. And music is a huge inspiration for me, because I like atmospheric things, and sometimes I don't know how to describe or explain a feeling to somebody, and music always has like that solution. Really inspiring to try to convey that into my work too.
That's actually really interesting. I've maybe not heard that before, that music is an inspiration for like visual art. Because like you were mentioning, I would think of seeing other art or seeing nature. Like, if I could draw or paint, I would probably paint natural scenes. But being inspired by music to create something visual, I think, is really, really neat. So overall, or I've talked in previous interviews about the balance between game difficulty and accessibility, and my most recent interview actually was with Fabian Weibel, the developer of havenpark, and I sort of joke that anyone who can use a game controller can play the game. It's very simple. In Teacup, there's also a very low skill level required to play. There's a low entry floor there. What was your reasoning behind building a more casual game? And is it difficult for you guys to make a game that's continually engaging if it's not skill-based, I guess?
Oh yeah, I think that you can play games for a lot of reasons. And I feel like there's some games which you play for the story, there are games that you play for the gameplay, and I feel, or games that you play to simply be in the world. And I feel like there's a space for all of those games, and Teacup is one of those games where you don't really play for the gameplay, for the challenge, to get better as a gamer, but you actually play it for more the story and the world you visit. So I kind of feel like when you look at it like that, what matters in Teacup is creating a world that is pretty with nice characters and music and audio that makes you want to be there and get to know more of it. And I felt like since that was our focus, it wouldn't be that nice to make it such a challenging game that people will get stuck and wouldn't be able to continue explore because they couldn't get through a minigame or something like that. So we felt like, besides it being kind of the mission of our publisher we worked with, we felt like making a game that was like more casual and anybody could play made more sense than making something more challenging. And about making it engaging, since I mentioned that the focus is kind of the world and the characters, a lot of the work there is about making the world and characters nice and creative and varied, so that they feel engaged. And when you visit a new place, you're kind of like, "Whoa, this is pretty. I want to keep on visiting beautiful places like this." And we try to add mini games there kind of for variety, because the people, once they get bored, like just walking around talking can get boring. So that's why also we have mini games which are all different from each other, kind of to add variety from the game and have something a bit more interactive to break up the walking and talking with characters all the time.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the mini games. They're short and they don't overstay their welcome, but there were a couple. Actually, the first time I played it, I got stuck on the very first puzzle. Oh, you guys remember? Okay. But
classic challenge.
But even so, it is skill based. But if you're taking too long, the game will give you a hint, or the option. It'll give you the option to have a hint. Now I'm stubborn. I didn't always take the hints.
No!
But there is kind of, it adds variety, but it doesn't make you complete it, or it doesn't make you sit there until you figured it out. It will kind of hold your hand if you need to, or if you want to. And I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, we don't want people to get stuck in minigames either.
Yeah.
So I know we have some game developers. I've seen Smokeback in the chat already, and David as well. So I want to talk a little bit about your how you found a publisher for your game. So you guys got connected with Whitethorn Digital, or Whitethorn Games, which to me, based on their portfolio of past games, your guys' game fits beautifully into their mix. They make a lot of narrative focused games that also have great art. So I did want to ask, how did you get connected with Whitethorn or with a publisher?
Yeah, so this is the part I handled, and I guess you could say there's always luck in these things. But it started a long time ago. Before the pandemic hit, I had applied for a scholarship to attend GDC, Game Developer Conference, which is the biggest conference for game developers in the world, which takes place every year. Well, it usually takes place every year, March, in San Francisco. And as you can guess, it's pretty expensive to be there, and also very expensive to buy the plane ticket from here, Latin America, over there. So I had applied to a scholarship to go there, and I won, which was pretty awesome. And the cool thing is that it wasn't really just a scholarship that gave you the ticket and said, okay, go have fun. They tried to accompany you in the process and let you meet other people and connect you, so you didn't feel like so thrown into the wild. And one of the people that were part of the program, actually a person who had participated in the scholarship, the alumni of the scholarship, who had won scholarship in other years and still participated in the community, was the CEO of Whitethorn. And basically he had just appeared there chatting with the other people who had won who were part of the program, and actually somebody else had asked him about I want to pitch to a publisher. How should we go around about doing that? And I kind of said, oh, this guy's a publisher. Let's see where he works. And when I saw that the website for Whitehorn, I was like, whoa, this publisher is kind of perfect for the game. Because that happened around January. So it's like basically at the same time we started prototyping the game. We found solid publisher, which looked perfect, like a perfect match for our game. So I kind of wrote down all the advice the CEO gave to the other participants, like on how to pitch to a publisher. I wrote that all down, and when we had finished the prototype for Teacup, I applied all the advice he gave when pitching the game to them. I basically just kind of depends on the process, but usually you prepare a document, slides from a PowerPoint presentation describing the game, and you send it over by email with the small demo of the game, and then they get back to you. In this case, we thought nothing was going to happen because we sent it over and said it's really cute, but we're full now. But they get back a couple of months later, like, we got space for you. We like it. Let's go ahead and make this come true. So
that's awesome.
Kind of like, it was kind of luck. And also, I think that since we started prototyping the game at the same time, we discovered them as a publisher and thought, we should publish with these people. We kind of made sure the game fit into the boxes they focus on.
Yeah, I think it fits, like I said, I think it fits very well. And I was not surprised to see that was who your publisher was. So for you guys, what can we look forward to in the future? I know that Teacup just came out, and it's still coming out next week for Switch and PS4 around the world. But what can we look forward to in the future from Smarto Club? And do you have any ideas or projects that you'd like to work on next?
Cool. So the future isn't certain yet, but we have a lot of prototypes going on. We still haven't really decided which of these prototypes we want to focus on, and we still have the time to decide. But we've posted about these games a few times on Twitter, but a bit more discreetly. We've been working on another narrative game called As Flowers Bloom, which takes a slightly more serious narrative and talks about a ghost who recently died and has to explore the places that mattered to her when she still lived to kind of accept her death. And on the light side, we were also prototyping a platforming game called Baobab Island, about a kid who lives in an island with a giant baobab tree and has to jump to the top by dodging enemies and getting power-ups, kind of like a roguelike. Which one we'll do, I don't know. But
roguelites
one of those
might be my love language. I do love those too.
Yeah. Basically, that was, as I mentioned, I'm, at least on my side, I'm easily influenced by what I'm playing at the moment. I have to come up with a game. At that moment, when we came up with that game, I was playing Hades. So I was like, I want to make something like this. And we came up with that.
So we're about to get to my last question. So anyone who's in the chat, please go ahead and ask your questions, and I will read them out as we come to them. So I want to ask you guys, who is your favorite character in the game, in Teacup? Besides Teacup.
Oh, French, yeah.
Okay. I was like, Teacup. No. I would say Pitiano and Jacobo, the pair of a lizard and a toad that are I love them. I just enjoyed so much writing what they said. Fights, I like them a lot.
They're very mystical, and I was like laughing out loud at the stuff they said. Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off, Alonso. Who does the writing? Do you guys combine it? Does it just depend?
I do the writing.
You do? Okay.
Yes. So all the quirky jokes you read was me like laughing at the keyboard.
Okay, Alonso, who's your favorite character?
Yeah, I have a weakness for grandpa side characters. So one of the first characters you meet, which is Soto, this currently grandpa, who used to explore the world when he was young. I like him a lot. And I also really like Felicio, which is the butt-like mayor of the town, who's always around watching mysteriously from a corner and has a very high opinion of himself, but we're not really sure what exactly he does as a mayor. But at least he projects confidence, which is an important quality for somebody like a mayor.
For a leader. I was very I guess kind of confused about what or who he was. I mean, he wears the mayor sash and he talks about being the mayor, but he's just everywhere. Very mysterious character. So my favorites were the 3 raccoons in the woods. They just kind of subverted my expectations and were, even though it was a short interaction, I thought they were funny. I can't remember all of their names. One of them was Luke. I remember that. But those were my favorite ones.
Yeah, I was like Luke, Brad, and Preston, I think. One of them used to be called Chat, but at the same time, afterwards, the Chat memes started appear, like that kind of guy who has a weird pose. And we said, people are going to think of those memes with this name, so we had to change it.
So I do have a couple questions coming through. But again, guys, if you like what you see here in the gameplay, or if you just want to support the awesome work from Smarto Club and enjoy a great game at the same time, the links to purchase are in the description below on YouTube and Facebook, or you can type !Teacup in the chat. That will also give you links to their socials, to the Smarto Club socials, and to Frances and Alonso's Twitter pages. And Frances, you actually have, I think, a link to your Instagram on your Twitter, right? Because you have some great art on Instagram as well. So if you like following artistic people on Instagram, you should go check that out. I was scrolling through it yesterday, and it's really cool.
Thank you.
So Leon, who was my co-host during Ludo Naricon, asked, "What is your favorite type of tea?" He must not have been here at the beginning.
Oh, okay. So mint tea and rooibos too. But generally, teas are my favorite.
I'm more of a coffee person, but yesterday, for example, we drank a lot of tea. Actually, the day before yesterday, to celebrate the release, we drank a lot of tea, and my favorite one was probably this mango tea that we had brought.
We should say that Dani is the tea library of our team. She is the one that has like a secret stash of teas. Seen someone with so many teas, so many flavors. So yes, she is the one that introduces us to our favorite teas.
That's awesome. That's probably me with my friends, except I have a hard time finding friends that drink tea. All of them drink coffee. I'm trying to slowly convert them. Every time they come over, I'm like showing them my cabinet of tea. Like, none of this interests you? Yes.
Best tragedy.
Simon asked earlier, any plans for a Game Pass premiere? The game is already out on Xbox, right?
Yeah, it's kind of more of a publisher's thing, but basically, to be completely honest, we weren't picked up for Game Pass by release. I have a hard time seeing it in the future. We weren't chosen probably by Xbox. You really have to, I think you have to be a higher profile game for them to consider it.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't know how Xbox Game Pass works. Like, I mean, I know how it works, but I don't know how they choose games.
Yeah, no, it's mysterious.
I think that's all the questions from the chat. I actually have one more for you, Francia.
Sure. Okay.
Or Francia. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your name every time I say it. So is the art in the game made in Photoshop? Like, what is your if you can explain it briefly, what is your process of creating this world?
So yes, it's made in Photoshop, and don't worry about my name. Everybody to say it the way they want. I have no trouble. Like their own special name they put me, it's great. And Well, I mostly start because of the size. Sometimes it will double the size that Unity allowed. So I would have to think a way that to repeat itself without being too horribly like on old cartoon. So when I had sort of that figured out, I will work on layers, and then I define the mood that I wanted. For example, a more blue mood, pink mood. And then I would say which one is the contrary color of this, and I would add that color a lot in everything. But I would use I don't know how to say the dissolve. I think it's the and on Photoshop, and you use the tool that lets you grade, but you have it with the of dissolve, so it adds these little specks to everything, and that's the texture I create or all added in everything. And then I go into detailing with little marks of different colors to make it pop. And then I think I put it on Unity to see, and this is where that was tricky, because when you do illustrations, it's gonna see the mistakes in one layer behind, because the illustrations don't move. But when you do it for games that have parallax, everybody's gonna see that tree is not well done. So I want to use. Then I was like, oh no, and then I had to go back to Photoshop and things for it to look beautiful.
Okay, so actually, while I was playing the game, in college I had to take art history, or appreciation of art is what it was called, and the art style in Teacup really reminds me of pointillism. And when you were talking about like adding small dots of texture, that again, that's like the only artistic style that stands out in my head besides like abstract and stuff like that. But I think maybe that's why I enjoyed the art style as much as I did. It's so different and so unique, and there's so much little detail in each point of color. I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, actually 2 more questions came in if you guys have time.
Sure, of course, we have time.
So Leon asked, will there be Teacup merchandise? I would love a Teacup plush. And I was actually thinking the same thing yesterday. I only have one plush, but it's Matthias from Chris Tales, actually.
Oh, cute.
But any plans?
Yeah, actually, we are working on that and might have something to announce soon. So I ask you to pay attention to our socials, because we might have good news to share with you very soon.
Okay, that's awesome. And Sosich actually asked, he said, I know budget plays a factor, but how do developers decide when to include voiceovers? He said, for me, text only is better. You guys have very limited voiceovers.
Yeah, the thing about voice acting is that you always have to consider you do fully voice act it, but are also considering releasing your game in other languages. Then you have to take the decision of you're going to release the game with re-record the lines with various voice actors in different languages, or you're just gonna stick with one and the rest is gonna have to deal with subtitled languages. And it gets difficult if you're kind of like the economies of scales make sense when you're making a bigger game, and people will buy the game if they have it in their local language. But when you're making a small indie game, it might not make that much of a difference of having the game voiced in the other languages. In our case, at least, we had the advantage that, and that's why we basically decided just to add voice effects, because we like them a lot. They had a lot of personality to characters, but our work for all languages the game will be available in. You just have to translate the text. And in our case, we have the advantage too that we worked a lot with local voice actors. Our sound designer actually did all the work of contacting them and setting up the recording sessions. And since it's local, it wasn't that expensive as we feared, and we're pretty happy with the result. Actually, I'm sure. Oh, if you reach the credits, you'll know the answer. But there's actually just 4 voice actors in the game, and they demonstrated their huge range and voiced all the 37 characters in the game just between the 4 of them.
Yeah, Dan in the chat said, when games lack voice acting, I can come up with my own in my head, and he said it makes it more fun, in his opinion.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree with that, actually, unless the voice acting is just incredible. Like you mentioned Hades earlier. I've really enjoyed the voice acting in Hades, but most times it's like reading a book. You create this kind of persona or the character in your mind, and they have their own voice. And for me, when I read a book and then watch the movie, I'm usually disappointed in the movie because the sets, the people, everything is just kind of, in my opinion, less than what I imagined.
Yeah, I guess the fun part too, I think Francesco's watched more streams of the game than I have, is that since it isn't fully voiced, everybody who tries the game adds their own voices to the game.
I actually wanted to say that was the best part, because when they get to the best forest and they start doing the auto voice when they read their dialogue, I liked it so much because they started like, "Hello, Teacup," and he was like, "Oh, amazing, you do that." So I invite everyone, even though there is voiceovers, please do your own voice, enjoy their characters, but also add a little bit of yourself to the voice. It's amazing.
Well, that is about all the time we have. Any final thoughts from you, Alonso and France? And where can the viewers follow your future developments?
Thank you for inviting us. This was a lot of fun. I love chatting with people. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Smarto Club. And keep your eyes open for the Nintendo Switch release coming this week on Thursday.
I would say thank you for having us and for being so nice overall. And yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Dos Banderas, which is difficult to actually say. I'm also on Twitter. Follow Smarto Twitter to know everything about us. I don't know if you want to know everything about us. You will know things about us there.
Yeah. And again, guys, their links are below in the description. Type !Teacup for all their links in the chat. And to both of you, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about Teacup and your journey as a first-time development team. And thanks to everyone who joined in the chat. Thank you for watching and chiming in with your own questions. And wherever you are, have a good day, afternoon, or night, and I'll see you in the next one.